interesting. So your time at Dark Horse is, you know, coming to an end now, but now you're doing something that's kind of like, I think it's really, really cool. It's kind of this niche thing as far as being a freelance editor.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about this on the way in, but kind of where do you see that going? And what is the value of that? What is the value of saying, okay, like I've been with the mainstream, and just for a second, I love the Dark Horse is called the Dark Horse because that's literally what they are. And it's crazy because you look at the sales and stuff, and you're like, wow, Dark Horse right up there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like, well, what do they put out? Well, I don't know, but it's working. Like, it's always selling, you know. So I think it's really cool. But then to make the decision, like, I'm going independent. Like, what got you to that point, and where do you see that going?
I mean, like I said, I spent 7 years there. I started out as an assistant editor, and worked my way up. Actually, only fairly recently to full editor.
Yeah.
They kind of have a philosophy that you do the job for a year or more before you get the title. So, like as an associate editor, I wasn't working for anybody, and I was mostly working on projects I brought in. But then the title of editor came this year.
Nice.
Basically, I just sort of 7 years is the longest I'd ever done anything.
Yeah.
And I kind of just, I don't know, Mike Richardson is this self-made guy, and he'll talk about, you know, I was 29 years old and I had a credit card, and so I started a company.
Yeah.
And I'm not going that far, but
right.
I did kind of take away from that. Well, at a certain point, I do want to know what it's like to be my own boss. You know, I'm just young enough that I don't own anything, so I can't really lose anything.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not tied to Portland or to my apartment or anything like that. I don't have a car.
I understand.
You don't need one in Portland.
Nice.
And so, you know, I talked to a bunch of people who had done it before, and there are actually a few. I talked to Rachel Edidin, who used to be an editor at Dark Horse and is now a freelance editor, and also she is now internet famous for. She and her husband do the Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men podcast.
Okay. Cool.
I talked to Lauren Sankovic, who used to be at Marvel. She's now the, whatever the title is, content manager or something.
Okay.
For Matt Fraction and Kelly Sue DeConnick's company.
Okay.
But she was freelance editing in between. And so I just sort of got a bunch of feedback from people like, what do you actually do as a freelance editor? Do you make any money? And I was kind of surprised that the answer is, this isn't a very visible position in comics. Right. It's not something a ton of people are doing, but there actually is a lot of demand for it.
Right.
You know, nowadays there's Kickstarter. There's a whole bunch of ways. You know, there's the internet. There's a bunch of ways to publish your work and distribute your work without a traditional publisher.
Right.
But people still want to have somebody to look over the script with them, look over the art with them.
Right.
You know, maybe they don't want to handle the schedule.
Right.
So it turns out that there is still a lot of work that is out there. My last day at Dark Horse was August 31st, so I haven't been doing this that long yet.
Right.
And most of the bigger gigs I'm going to be doing are still in the negotiation phase.
Right.
I'm coming onto a couple image series as editor.
Nice.
A few new ones, but also a couple of existing ones, where I've discovered around issue 6, people realize, I don't want to be in charge of the schedule anymore. I don't want to be like calling the artist every day anymore. I want someone else to do that.
Yeah.
So there'll be some of that, but in the short term, I'm mostly doing like consulting work. I have an hourly rate where someone will send me their pitch. I'll read their pitch. I'll write a long email with a bunch of feedback for it.
Right.
Either if it's a project that it seems like I can help out with in the long term, I'll stay with the project.
Right.
There's one or two where it looks like that's going to happen.
Okay.
But then for the most part, I just, I clock in a couple hours of back and forth with them, reading a few drafts of the pitch, and then, they go their merry way and pitch it to some publishers, and hopefully I've helped make their pitch more saleable.
Wow. Awesome. You guys